Hi, I'm Matteo, 29, and 4 months ago, I gifted my parents a $300,000 Italian villa for their retirement. They gave it to my sister without telling me. It was supposed to be a thank you for the years they spent scraping by. For my dad, who worked graveyard janitor shifts, and my mom, who made miracles out of canned soup and expired coupons. For all the birthdays they skipped so I could afford textbooks, braces, and eventually, grad school. I made it. I got out. And I wanted them to taste the life they'd sacrificed for. So I bought them a villa. Not a metaphorical, someday plan. A literal, sun-soaked, 2-story stone villa nestled in a vineyard-covered hillside in Tuscany. Terracotta roof, green shutters, the kind of place that makes you believe in old-world charm. It had a lemon tree in the courtyard. I had it furnished, wired with solar panels, and stocked the cellar with local wine. I even flew out early to handwrite a note that said, "For everything you gave up so I could have a chance, now it's your turn." They cried. I cried. It was the only time I've ever seen my dad cry without blaming it on onions. My sister, Camille, was so happy for them. She did the whole soft voice, mascara dab routine and called me a saint on Facebook. I should have known. I really should have known. Because less than 6 weeks later, I got a message from a friend who was honeymooning in Italy. "Dude, saw your family's villa. Super cute. Camille gave us a tour, she said it's her place now." I reread the message twice. I thought maybe it was a joke. Or a misunderstanding. Or an autocorrect mistake. I even laughed out loud, because no way. No way would my parents just give it to her. Not when I'd signed the deed in their names. Not when I told them, over and over, "This is for you." I called. My mom picked up, cheery as a travel agent. "Oh, hi, honey. How's work?" "Camille's just settling in so beautifully. You should see how she's decorated it." I blinked. "Settling in? What do you mean?" Silence. Then a pause that felt like watching a house of cards teeter. "Well, she needed a change," Mom said, like we were talking about haircuts, not property. "She's been going through so much, and you always land on your feet, Matteo. Camille just needed this a little more." I didn't say a word. Because I knew what came next would change everything. I flew to Italy. No warning. No suitcase. Just rage, my passport, and a borrowed carry-on from my roommate, still dusted with granola bar crumbs. I didn't tell Camille I was coming. I didn't tell my parents either. I wanted to see it with my own eyes, the house I gave them, the one that apparently now belonged to my sister like it was a hand-me-down sweater. The taxi ride from the Florence airport to the villa took an hour. I barely looked up. I spent most of it imagining conversations that ended in screaming, lawsuits, or both. I pictured Camille sipping wine on my balcony, barefoot, smug, with zero clue how much it cost to make that dream real. When we pulled up to the villa, I actually laughed. Out loud. Because the gate had a brand new sign hanging from it. Villa Camilla. Private retreat, guests by appointment only. I thought I might black out. I walked right in. The gate wasn't even locked. The lemon tree I planted was now in a white ceramic pot with a boutique logo on it. The rustic porch furniture had been replaced by this obnoxious pastel Instagram spread, lace pillows, fake candles, a whole aesthetic that screamed influencer who just discovered olives. And there she was. Camille. In a linen jumpsuit. Hair braided, barefoot on the tiles, sipping something fizzy from a wine glass. She blinked when she saw me, like I was a hallucination. "Matteo?" she said, like I was the one who broke into her house. I stepped forward. "What did you do?" "Oh my God, take a breath," she said, setting her glass down. "You're seriously overreacting." Overreacting. I walked past her into the living room, where she replaced my mom's antique mirror with some massive print that read, "Find your bliss," in swirly gold lettering. I didn't see a single photo of our parents. Not one. "This house was a gift," I said, turning slowly. "To them. Not to you. You had no right." She groaned, cutting me off. "They offered." "Okay? They offered. I didn't steal anything." My stomach dropped. "They offered?" I asked. "Why would they do that?" Camille shrugged. "Because I needed it more. Because they love me. Because I've been struggling and you're successful. You don't need a villa. You don't need anything. I stood there, stunned. And that's when she hit me with the kill shot. Honestly? You're just mad they picked me for once. It wasn't about the villa anymore. It was about everything. And that was the moment I realized this wasn't the first thing they'd handed her. It was just the biggest. I confronted my parents the next morning. I didn't sleep. Not because I couldn't, I didn't want to. If I slept, I'd soften. I'd convince myself to be the bigger person. Again. I'd remember birthdays and guilt, and how my dad used to fall asleep in his work boots, and how Mom still tears up at classical music commercials. But that morning, all I had in me was fire. They were staying in a pensione 10 minutes away, not the villa, mind you, because Camille told them she needed space for the launch. What launch? I found out later she was turning the villa into a retreat brand. Yoga, journaling, curated wine tastings. She'd already hired a photographer. When my mom opened the door, her eyes lit up. Matteo! I didn't hug her. Why? I asked. Did you give away your retirement home? She blinked. Like she hadn't expected me to start there. Like she thought we'd chat about jet lag first. Sweetheart, she started, her hands already fluttering into apology mode. Camille needed. I didn't ask about Camille, I said, sharper than I meant to. I asked why you gave up the house I bought for you. Dad stepped in. His face was tight with that polite, quiet misery he always wore during conflict. It's not about ownership, Matteo. It's just a house. No, I said. It was a gift. Not a hotel room. Not a placeholder. You were supposed to live there. You were supposed to finally rest. Mom sat down like I'd hit her. You've always had so much, Matteo. You're strong. Camille, she's always been delicate. You know that. That word, delicate, made my jaw clench. I flashed back to every time they bailed her out. The credit card debt. The broken lease. The semester abroad she forgot to register for and they paid for anyway. Meanwhile, I was working 30 hours a week in college and hiding the fact that I couldn't afford heating my senior year. She needed it. Mom repeated. And what about what you needed? I asked, my voice cracking now. You really wanted to live in that tiny apartment and visit your retirement villa like it's some Airbnb she manages? Dad said quietly. It made her feel important. I laughed. And me? What was I supposed to feel? Mom looked up. Grateful. There it was. That word again. The same one they used when they told me Camille got the bigger bedroom because she had dreams. When she crashed her second car and I was told, be grateful you don't have her anxiety. When they asked me to co-sign her business loan, and then guilt me when I said no. I stood there, and for the first time in my life, I felt it fully. I was the backup plan. The reliable one. The ATM with a heartbeat. The trophy son they kept in the back of the closet, only to be pulled out when it was convenient. I turned to leave. My mom called after me. Please don't hate us. I didn't answer. Because hate wasn't the word. It was something deeper. And much, much colder. I didn't go back to the villa. I checked into a hotel in Florence, bought a notebook at a corner shop, and started writing down everything. Not for revenge. Not for some explosive family therapy memoir. I needed to see it all on paper. The slow erosion of fairness. The pattern. The way Camille's needs always turned into my debts. I'd normalized it for years. But standing there in that overpriced suite, watching the Arno flow by like it didn't care, I realized something simple and savage. They didn't betray me once. They betrayed me over and over. I just finally caught them in the act. 3 days passed before Camille texted. I really wish you hadn't made this weird. I stared at the screen for a full minute. No apology. No accountability. Not even an attempt to lie well. Just that same old gaslighting wrapped in self-pity. She followed it with a selfie from the villa courtyard, captioned, grateful for new beginnings. #healing home. I didn't respond. That night, I booked a meeting with a lawyer. His name was Massimo, and he looked like he ate lawsuits for breakfast. When I laid everything out, the deed transfer, the trust I'd planned but hadn't finalized, the verbal agreements, I expected him to shake his head and say, sorry, not much you can do. Instead, he leaned back, nodded slowly, and said, If your name funded the purchase and there's no formalized gift deed, the property may still be contestable. Especially if there's evidence of coercion or undue influence. I blinked. Wait, so I could get it back? He shrugged. Possibly. If you want to. And that stopped me. Did I? Did I really want the villa back? Or did I want something else, something I couldn't sign for or sue over? It wasn't about the lemon tree. It wasn't about the view or the tiles or even the six-figure check I wired to the real estate agent. It was about being replaced. Being used. About the way my parents looked at Camille like she was a storm they couldn't stop, and I was just a levee. But something in me cracked open that night. Because if I let this slide, if I let them walk away with the house, the narrative, and their hands clean, it would never end. So I told Massimo one sentence. Let's proceed. And just like that, the one thing Camille never saw coming was already in motion. Me saying no. Camille didn't find out about the legal filing until a certified letter landed on her doorstep. Massimo had it delivered in triplicate, one copy to the villa, one to my parents' address back home, and one to her business office, which, according to the Italian tax registry, was just a Gmail inbox and a Canva logo. She called me an hour after it arrived. No hello. No pleasantries. Just, are you insane? I was in a quiet cafe near the Ponte Vecchio, drinking espresso and annotating a spreadsheet titled, "Everything I've paid for that Camille pretended was a favor." I kept my voice calm. Nope. Just finally done pretending. You're suing me? She screeched. No. I'm petitioning to reclaim ownership of a property I purchased, which you're squatting in under false pretenses. That's not a lawsuit. That's called reality catching up. She launched into a monologue about betrayal and family and how I was weaponizing money, which was rich coming from the person who'd once fake cried into Mom's voicemail to get a Venmo transfer for concert tickets. You gave them the house, she snapped. I did, I said. Them. Not you. They were supposed to live there. Not Airbnb it. Not turn it into a pastel-washed yoga compound for burnout millennials. People love the aesthetic, she hissed. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. You renamed the house Villa Camilla. You planted a flag like you conquered Tuscany with a ring light and a discount crystal set. It's not yours. Silence. Then, you're going to destroy this family. And there it was. The eternal script. The guilt grenade. Not, I did something wrong. Not, let's fix it. But you're the villain for holding me accountable. I'd heard it before. When I refused to co-sign her third loan. When I skipped Christmas the year she accused my girlfriend of weaponizing her tone. When I said, I'm not bankrolling your Reiki certification. And she told Mom I had money trauma. So I said what I should have said years ago. Camille, I'm not destroying the family. I'm just not subsidizing the lie anymore. Then I hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time after. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I felt clean. The fallout came fast, and dramatic, of course. First, Camille went full scorched earth on social media. She posted a black and white selfie with the caption, "Sometimes the people who say they love you hurt you the most." #family wounds, #healing anyway. Her followers ate it up. Heart emojis. Prayers. A few passive-aggressive comments from our cousins. One of them tagged me. Then came the group chat ambush. A thread titled, Important Family Discussion. Lit up with notifications like a slot machine. Mom started with, "Can we all talk like adults, please?" Dad followed with, "Matteo, maybe we could settle this without legal drama." Camille added a paragraph that started with, "What you're doing is cruel, entitled, and ultimately performative." Which sounded like she'd Googled how to sound smart while guilt-tripping. I replied with one sentence. "You all made a choice, this is just mine." After that, radio silence. For 2 days. Until Camille sent her own lawyer. He was 24, still listed his internship on LinkedIn, and submitted a formal counterclaim, declaring that Camille had established primary residence, and had a moral right to the villa due to her emotional contributions. Massimo called me laughing. "My friend, this is not a case. This is a blog post." Still, The sheer absurdity of it sparked something in me. I took a train back to the villa. Not to argue. To document. I arrived unannounced. Camille wasn't there. But her assistant, yes, she now had an assistant, was giving a tour to a group of American wellness influencers. One of them asked if the bathroom tiles were ancient Mediterranean. I said, "No, I installed those last year. On a discount. From Home Depot." She shrieked. The assistant tried to shoo me away. "This is a private space, sir." I smiled, pulled out a folder, and said, "No. This is an asset under legal review. And you're all going to want to leave before I file trespassing charges." They scattered like pigeons in a thunderstorm. I walked through the villa, documenting everything: the branded yoga mats, the ring light in the wine cellar, the box of pre-labeled gratitude journals stacked by the door. I found a manifesto on the desk labeled The Camilla Method, Mindfulness for the Modern Soul. I took a photo of every page. On the way out, I replaced the Villa Camilla sign with a printed one I'd made the night before. Pending legal review, entry at owner's discretion. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't petty. It was a boundary. And for the first time, I knew she'd have to actually reckon with one. 2 weeks later, we were in court. Not a big flashy courtroom, just a stuffy municipal office in Florence with creaky floors and an ancient espresso machine that hissed louder than Camille's lawyer. Massimo sat beside me in a navy suit that looked like it had never wrinkled in its life. He radiated calm. I, on the other hand, was vibrating with a mixture of anxiety, fury, and a decade's worth of swallowed pride. Camille walked in 5 minutes late. Linen jumpsuit. Dramatic scarf. Sunglasses on her head like she was starring in her own indie film about healing through adversity. She didn't look at me. Not once. The judge was an older woman with no time for theatrics. She read through the documents silently, only raising an eyebrow when she got to Camille's emotional investment claim. "Signora," she said, peering over her glasses at Camille, "your name appears nowhere on the purchase, the deed, or any formal transfer." "But I live there," Camille insisted. "I've put my heart into that home. My work, my brand." The judge held up a hand. "And yet your brother paid the full amount, registered the villa under your parents' names, and has now provided signed statements from both parties confirming they did not gift it to you." Camille opened her mouth again, but Massimo leaned over and whispered, "Let her. She's digging." Camille stood. Actually stood. "Your Honor, I sacrificed so much to make that place what it is. My parents offered it to me because they believe in me. They saw how much I needed a sanctuary, a platform to grow my business. And when you received that gift..." The judge cut in sharply. "Did you record any documentation? Did you initiate a legal transfer?" Camille's mouth twitched. "No, but... Did you consult the owner before listing the property as a commercial retreat?" Silence. "Did you obtain consent before using it to conduct business, film promotional content, or host paying guests?" More silence. "Signora," the judge said firmly, "there is no moral argument that outweighs property law. You were given hospitality. You claimed ownership. That is not inheritance. That is appropriation." Massimo didn't even flinch. He'd known. He knew we'd won before we walked in. The ruling came down in 15 minutes. Ownership confirmed under my parents. Commercial use revoked. Camille ordered to vacate within 72 hours. Any future claims contingent upon written approval from the rightful owners. But that wasn't the victory. The real one came after. Because my parents were waiting outside. They looked smaller somehow. Not ashamed. Not angry. Just tired. Like people who'd finally realized what they'd let fester for far too long. "We didn't know it got this bad," Dad said quietly. "We thought it would blow over. That you two would figure it out." "Figure what out?" I asked, not unkindly. "That you kept handing me the heavy end of everything and called it love?" Mom flinched. But she didn't deny it. "We never wanted to choose between you," she whispered. "We just didn't know how to say no to her. That was choosing," I said. "You just never admitted it." And then something wild happened. My father, gruff, quiet, blue-collar to his bones, put a hand on my shoulder and said, "Then we're saying it now." He looked me dead in the eye. "She doesn't get the house. We do. Because you gave it to us." And we're done pretending she deserves what you built. That cracked something open in my chest. Not joy. Not relief. Just release. 3 days later, Camille moved out. She didn't slam the door. She didn't throw a tantrum. She left quietly, in a luxury Uber with her assistant hauling 3 ring lights and a trunk full of sponsored wellness gear. She didn't say goodbye. I didn't ask for one. I stayed in the villa with my parents that night. Just the 3 of us. We sat on the patio, under that lemon tree I planted, and drank the cheap local wine I'd stocked months ago. No toasts. No big speeches. Just quiet. I'm sorry it took this to wake us up, Mom said, breaking the silence. I shook my head. It took all of it. Every little thing. That's how patterns work. My dad laughed. And here I thought I was just tired. You were, I said. Tired of being guilted into peace. We watched the sun sink behind the hills. The wind smelled like rosemary and clean stone. My mother reached out and took my hand. For the record, she said, this is the most at home I've felt in years. I know, I said. That's why I gave it to you. They didn't say thank you again. They didn't need to. The next morning, I left them the keys and went back to Florence. The villa was theirs. Truly, finally theirs. No caveats. No conditions. No Instagram captions required. Back in my apartment a week later, I got a message from Camille. Just a text. I hope you're happy. You broke something you can't fix. I stared at it for a while. Then typed back. No. I just stopped fixing something that was never mine to repair. Blocked the number. Closed the chat. And just like that, the door shut. Not slammed. Not locked in anger. Just closed, with the kind of peace that doesn't need to be proven. The villa stands. The lemons ripen. And for once, the silence around it is earned. Not forced. But free.